I'm Julia Gentry, and along with my husband, Travis Gentry, we discuss real, raw, and not small talk conversations about faith, family, entrepreneurship, and all the things that matter most in this life. This is the Dream On podcast.
Welcome to the Dream On podcast. So we start off each episode asking each other a question, and it's off the cuff. I did it last time, so I don't know if you have a question, but it's your turn to ask me anything
that I want to know,
that you want to know, or favorite quotes, or you know how this goes. Like you're new to this.
Well, you're just leading me down. Maybe I don't know. I'll just change it up. I do have a question. So if you could get on a plane right now and go anywhere, where would you go? Why would you go there? And how long would you go there for?
Right now, I would go to, oh man, the time of year right now.
That's what I mean. Like literally right now, like I could hand you a plane ticket and you could go anywhere for how long and do whatever you want there. What would you do?
I'd go to Australia.
For how long?
For until I got bored.
A one-way ticket.
Because I think they're entering their summer. So I think that it's opposite of us.
And what would you do there?
Whatever I wanted.
You guys, this is why I asked Travis. I don't even ask Travis anymore. What are you doing today? Because you know what he says? Whatever I want. Or
no,
I'll go on a trip.
That's not always true.
Most of the time, if he goes on a vacation,
I'll try to give you some cliff notes of like what I'm doing, but it's a timely topic of what we're discussing.
What are we talking about today?
What?
I don't know. Let's talk about it later.
A little bit of procrastination.
Today we're talking about procrastinating. Did you get my joke? Where it's going now?
I got that.
Okay, good. Okay, we're going to talk about procrastinating and how we need to boost productivity to actually achieve our dreams. And the reason that we're going to be talking about this is actually because as I was doing a little bit of research and the statistics, even around procrastination, I was shocked. And I was shocked because and the reason that this came up for me is because lately I've been doing a lot of coaching with some clients. And the number one thing that they keep running up against is procrastination. And this whole idea, well, I'm just a procrastinator and I don't want to do it and I don't want to do it. And so it's just been like the topic of conversation.
People actually say that, like I'm a procrastinator.
Oh yeah, no, there's like the title. There's the title behind it. It's not just something that people do. It's who people think that they are, which the last couple of podcasts, you and I have been talking about this whole thing. But research has shown that 95% of people actually admit to procrastinating. So they don't identify as being a procrastinator, but 95% of people would say, yes, I procrastinate. 20% would say that they're chronic procrastinators, which would probably be the camp of people who would say, I am a procrastinator.
They want to hold themselves as...
They actually have a title. Hi, my name is Julia Gentry, and I am a procrastinator. Swing that thing up. Okay, but then here's what I found to be really fascinating. It says that people procrastinate for a total of 218 minutes per day.
That's awesome.
That's fascinating to me.
Yeah. So that's over 3 hours a day.
And then last but not least, men procrastinate more than women.
Well, of course they do.
Why?
I don't know. Why not?
I just thought this is kind of what we're dealing with.
I think that's wrong. I think women procrastinate more so. Well, out of your coaching clients, who says more so that they identify themselves as men? They do?
Oh yeah, no, it was the men this week that were saying
men are identifying themselves as procrastinators?
Yes. Oh. Okay. So tell me about you. Well, where does procrastinating land? Where do you land on that spectrum?
Where do I land? I wouldn't identify myself as anything because I'm a 4 on the Enneagram, and I just don't identify myself with or around anything. So
that's a whole nother podcast.
So I know when I'm procrastinating. Everybody does. So for anybody to say they don't is not true. I know when I'm doing it. I think what I'm wrestling with, or what I like go back and forth with is what I'm wanting to do, really what I'm wanting to do in certain areas. And so I procrastinate on it.
Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing you say is that the reason that you will procrastinate is because you actually don't know if the thing that you want to do is the thing that you want to do.
Exactly.
So some people would say, I procrastinate because I know what I'm supposed to do, but I don't want to do it. And you're saying, I don't actually know if that's the thing I want to do. Therefore, I just procrastinate the whole issue.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so but then am I procrastinating? Because I don't know if I even want to do it.
Oh my gosh, welcome to Travis Gentry's brain.
So then that's my 218 minutes a day of going back and forth of like, am I procrastinating? I don't think I am, because maybe I don't even really want to do this. And then I come to the conclusion, well, obviously I didn't want to do it today because I didn't do it. So I didn't procrastinate, but I did spend 218 minutes thinking about it.
Oh, this is why he's brilliant and successful, ladies and gentlemen, because what he does with the other hours in his day matter. No, but I think that's really actually a fascinating perspective, is that generally I think of when we think about procrastinating, it falls in the camp of, I know the things that I need to do and I'm still not doing it.
Yep.
Right. Like Paul talks about that in the Bible all the time. I know the thing I should do. I should do push-ups. I should eat healthier. I should write the book. I should start the business, but yet I'm not doing it. What you're saying is like a totally different spin on this, which is, should I or shouldn't I? Do I want to or do I not want to? Maybe all right, maybe I don't. Maybe like it's like you're not even clearly defined in what you want to do to determine that you're going to procrastinate in doing it.
Well, I think so. A very simplistic example, a type of workout. So do I want to go mountain biking? Do I want to go to the gym? Do I want to go outside? What do I want to do? And so I spend time going back and forth and sitting it. Do I want to do that? Or no, I don't really want to do that. It's not if I'm going to work out, it's how I'm going to work out. Mm-hmm. So it's a very small, simple example, but it's not like where some people, it's like, am I going to work out? Mm-hmm. And they're going back and forth of, no, I'm not going to work out, or I am going to work out. No, I am going to work out. It's just, how am I going to work out?
So let me ask you this.
As opposed to just picking one, running with it,
yep,
and kind of pre-planning out, okay, tomorrow I'm going to do this
workout. That was going to be my question.
So I don't even have to think about it. I'm already geared up for that type of workout that day.
Okay, so my question for you would be, are you pre-planning your day, your week, or your month?
No, that's what I'm not doing.
Okay, here, by the way, again, is Travis Gentry, who doesn't like a plan or routine or anything monotonous or anything that looks
Sometimes the best plan is not to have a plan.
But not 24/7.
Sometimes.
Until it's not.
Yeah.
Okay. So what would it look like if you created a few steady plans so that the rest of the day or the week or the month you could have freedom to adventure? Like, what would it hurt to go, okay, these things I'm going to create a pre-plan like routine, because it makes, I'm going to maximize my effectiveness in this. So I don't have to, when I get there, I don't have to decide what I need to do because I've already pre-planned it, which then in theory creates the freedom in the other areas of your life.
Yeah. So I think this is, like you said, timely, and it's always timely because it ebbs and flows and you adjust it. So I have certain things planned out that I like to do on a daily basis that I do pretty much every day. The rest of the time, I don't really want to have a plan because then I feel too structured.
Yeah.
And that's when I start to feel like my whole day, like I don't even have to wake up because that whole day is like so planned out. It's like Groundhog's Day.
Yeah.
So there's certain things that I do that I know I'm going to do. And then I need to leave for myself space to have that flow of things I may or may not do.
Yep.
Is how I function really well. And I also know that there's certain things that I just need to press into and do a better job at allowing myself to experience it, to see if like I want to move forward with whatever that is, as opposed to letting it run in my head and I'll do it tomorrow. No, I'll do it Monday, or I'll do it Friday, or the beginning of the month, and then it's like, it's just always there, as opposed to saying, I'm going to try it. And then once I try it, then I'll know, and I can allow that to be freed from my mind space.
Yeah. I think that as I've been just thinking more and more about this idea of procrastinating, I think that the reason that it's easy to procrastinate, especially for the people who are now chronic procrastinators, or when we know the things that we're supposed to do, but we're not doing them. But I think why it becomes, I don't want to say an addiction, but kind of, is that there's at some level instant gratification. Because if I'm like, okay, I'm going to work out, and I'm like, I'm going to do that Friday. and then I put it off till tomorrow. I have an instant gratification because even though I'm not doing it right now, I feel good about it because I moved it till Friday. Right. Or if I'm going to have a hard conversation, I was going to have it this afternoon, but I come like, hey, I can't talk today. Let's talk on Monday. And you get like this hit of like, okay, I did that.
I accomplished something.
I did that.
Because it's on the books.
It's on the books.
I may push it back.
I'm going to push it back. And so then what happens is then Monday comes and like you push that back. And then all of a sudden it's like, I'm getting this like instant gratification of I'm getting things done, but I'm actually not really getting them done. So the weird thing is that it's giving me this instant gratification, but then it's like deteriorating my confidence because I'm actually not holding to the promises that I'm making to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I start to actually see myself as someone who's like putting it off. And so I'm actually becoming my behavior. Like my identity is now shifted based upon behavior as opposed to my behavior being a byproduct of my identity.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think it becomes, you practice that 10, 20, 30 years. And it's like, it's now your new routine that you run out over and over and over again. And so, my thoughts around this a little bit would be, almost like how you and I approached when we finally decided to travel in the RV. And I think it has to be like, whether you're like, I don't know if I really want to do that or not, or I keep pushing this thing out and I need, I'm procrastinating that I need to do. I think you put it on the table and you go, look, we're either going to do this or we're never going to talk about it again.
Mm-hmm.
And just see what happens. Like we're either going to have this hard conversation or I'm going to stop grumbling and complaining about this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm either going to write this book or I'm never talking about it again. I'm either going to travel the country in an RV or we're never talking about it again. And I feel like when you finally like put the thing on the table and you go, look, we're either going to deal with this thing or we're done talking about it. It just forces your hand on, do you really want it?
Yeah. Well, I think going back to the RV for us, like we did it twice. We did it once in a fifth wheel in a truck, but that wasn't what we always talked about.
Yeah.
It was like big A class, living full time, like full commitment. The first go around was like 3 months. We kind of dabbled in it. I mean, we bought a brand new fifth wheel and all the things, but after 3 months, we took a hard right, but then it wouldn't go away. And so a year later, we're like, it's not going away. It didn't fulfill exactly what we intended to 10 years prior and what we talked about and looking at the A class and that's when we came to the conclusion of like, we either need to do it or stop talking about it. And that's when we sold everything to jump in the RV because we were fully committed.
Mm-hmm.
Like once you sell everything and you watch everything disappear from your house within like 3 hours, you understand like I'm committed. Mm-hmm. I have to move forward
mm-hmm.
with this.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's almost like the carrot, like the dog chasing the rabbit.
Yeah.
And you put that carrot out in front of you of like, well, I'll do this. Like, how bad do you really want it? Because obviously you don't want it that bad. So that's how, like, when we're talking about this subject and what you're saying is like to go do it to see if that's even really what you want. But for most individuals, we kind of like we keep putting it further out. We postpone that meeting or the conversation or, I'll start working out on Monday or the 1st mm-hmm. or next year or after the holidays, whatever it is. But it's like, do you really want to, as opposed to just being in the midst of that conversation and telling people, I'm going to start working out.
Yeah.
Like, just like, you don't really want it that much.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's interesting because even as you say that, I think that when there's a reoccurring thought in your mind, right, around, like, I know I'm supposed to do this, so whether even at church, when someone says like, you're supposed to give something up. And if something pops up in your head over and over and over again, or you wake up and you're like, I know I'm supposed to be working out, or I need to be having this conversation, and it's like, it keeps happening and keeps happening and keeps happening. And then on the flip side, we're praying like, God, I want to hear your voice. Like, I want to follow your lead. You're like, that is the conviction of the Holy Spirit. Like when things pop up in your mind that you're like, I don't necessarily want to be thinking this, but it just keeps coming back up again. I think number one is the Holy Spirit going, hey, like that's me in you leading you, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason that it keeps coming back up again is because he wants the things that are good for us and healthy for us, that are going to make us better people. And so I think it starts as these really weird, like subtle convictions that we think are just the nuisance of like making us do hard things. And then I think that over time, when we don't do it and we create the barrier, like we're the ones who make it bigger and harder than it actually needs to be.
Mm-hmm. But how then do you decipher if it's like God speaking to you or the enemy trying to tempt you to be distracted, to go off to the right?
Yeah, I mean, I
like
think
what's the difference? Both could be good, like in the sense, but one is a distraction, which is,
I think distractions are, in my mind, distractions are different than procrastinating. Like when we're talking about the actual definition of like really, truly, everybody right now, think about the thing that you've been procrastinating. Do you have yours? Think about the thing that you've been procrastinating. Like nowhere in me do I think that that's the devil, is what I'm saying. So when we're really talking about, okay, I've been procrastinating. Truly, I mean, I can think of the list of things that people have told me this week. I've been procrastinating praying out loud. I've been procrastinating asking for help. I've been procrastinating getting to the gym. I've been procrastinating writing my book. I mean, those are all things that you're like, that's not the devil.
mm-hmm.
Right. So when I think about procrastinating, it's very different than the conversation of distractions. I think distractions like fuel the flame of what we're procrastinating, because now if I'm a procrastinator, oh, I'm going to do all of these other things, but that, I think that adds to the procrastination. But I think that procrastination is actually trying to detour us from the thing that God has for us. Right? From the, I have come that you might have life in my life more abundantly, John 10:10. Jesus is like, I have come that you, but that means that we have to move towards that. And so I think that procrastinating actually gets us out of step with that promise, not in step with that promise.
Mm-hmm.
And even if some of them are just more of a state of being or flow, right? Like if I think about working out, does the Bible tell us that we need to do push-ups? No, it doesn't. But you and I both know with enough research and studying that it gets your blood flowing and it gets oxygen to the brain and it makes you feel stronger and it makes you feel better. So it like gets you in flow for the rest of your day, keeps you healthy, helps you live longer, right? So it helps you curb not eating the right thing or the wrong thing. So I feel like there's other things that are going to aid in all of us becoming the best version of ourselves. And it's like, that's not of the devil. The thing that's of the devil is him like feeding you a bill of goods that says like you're a procrastinator. No,
Mm-hmm.
you're not a procrastinator. You learned to procrastinate. It protected you. It worked. You got instant gratification. And now you have this title and you've totally forgotten who you are. A warrior, a child of God, intimately and wonderfully made, like ready to conquer day. So I feel like that it becomes more of this identity issue than behavioral issue. But most of us look at it as like a behavioral issue.
Interesting.
That's my take on it.
Interesting.
That's my take on it. And I would say like, so if that's probably not an area that I struggle hugely on, but I have on areas that feel very vulnerable to me. So normally I'm a get up and get it done, all the things done girl. But there are big items that when I feel vulnerable or out of control, or I can't control the outcome, that would be the percentage of that pocket that I'll slow my roll.
But I would say that's everybody. I mean, if you're going to procrastinate on something, you're not going to procrastinate on something that you're good at. You're not going to procrastinate something that you feel confident in. You're not going to procrastinate on something that you know that you're going to accomplish.
But there's also, I would say that there are types of people who are even hearing me right now. They're like, no, I do that in every area of my life. Like, I don't do that in every area of my life. I do that in the big, big things in my life. Otherwise, I don't do that every day. But I've talked to many people this week, truly, and maybe it's just leading me to this podcast today. Many who go, no, I procrastinate in every area of my life.
But I would say majority of people that they procrastinate the most in what you're saying.
Sure.
Okay, they procrastinate in all areas of their life because they identify themselves as procrastinators. Really, at the root of it, though, you procrastinate on the things, on everything you just said that means something.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to procrastinate. Yes, okay, there's different levels of procrastination, but the things that mean the most are the ones that you tend to put off and put off and put off. A hard conversation, okay, instead of working out for an hour, I'm going to work out for 25 minutes, but that 25 minutes is a way harder workout. And so I procrastinate on that type of workout, so I think that because it means something and it's harder. It's harder to do physically, mentally, spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's for most people.
But then what's the way out?
The way out is just
through it. The only way out is through. Thank you for joining us on the episode. That's all we got for you. Come back tomorrow.
All you have to do is just go through it. So, I mean, at the end of it's so simple. Keep it simple.
Stupid hard.
Yes. And so if you want it bad enough and you want the result, the only way to accomplish it is to actually do the thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not hard in the sense of like the concept of it. It is hard doing it.
Yeah.
Mentally, physically, spiritually, whatever it is for you, whatever you're procrastinating on.
Yeah.
Having a conversation where it's going to be intense with the person, or could be, escalate into yelling or whatever it is, just because of the dynamic and the history in the past with that individual.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard. So you avoid it, you procrastinate on it. But the only way to make that better or to have resolve or conclusion is to have that conversation.
Yeah. And it's been interesting in my own life now, being on the other side of enough of those moments. I would honestly say that I feel like closing the loop is actually easier than like playing it out in your head over and over and over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. So like even for writing this book, I mean, it took me like 8 years to write this thing. And not that I was like, drowning in sorrow for 8 years, but the idea and the fantasy of chasing it over and over and over ahead, like it's so exhausting. And it strips away your confidence and your trust in yourself. And I mean, it just starts to like deteriorate your mental and emotional game, as opposed to when you get on the other side of having done it, it is so the opposite. I mean, you feel stronger, you feel more connected, you feel more alive. Like when you get on the other side of doing those hard things enough, you start to go, dang, it's actually easier to just close that loop and walk through it than it is to dance with it over and over and over again.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny with the RV thing and the book. You actually wrote a book many, many years ago, and it was more of like a pamphlet, not really a book.
Yeah.
You called it a book, and it was at the time because it was that first step.
Right.
But now looking, as you say that, the difference between that book and this book is night and day difference. This took a year and a half of like going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, where that other book took you a few months and you self-publish it and you just threw it out there. This was like, there was a lot more energy and effort and, wrestling with, your flesh and blood of like, okay, what is this book? Who is it for? And, through that process, you mentally get attacked.
Yeah.
It's vulnerable.
Yeah.
You feel insecure of like, can I really be putting this out? Or how do I put this out? Because it means something. And if people don't like it, then it means more than the first book.
Yeah.
Because it was like, it's easy when you put out the first book of like, if anyone didn't read it, you're like, I didn't really put that much time, effort, and energy into it relative to this book.
Yeah. And I think part of what helps with that process is once you identify the thing that you're procrastinating is to go, why? Like, I know this sounds crazy, but why am I procrastinating? Like, what's the worst thing that will happen by me doing this? And if you can get to the root of the issue, right? Whether it's, I don't feel like I'll belong. I don't feel safe. I feel like I'll be rejected. I feel like I'm going to fail. I feel like I'll lose money. Like if you can actually walk yourself to the worst case scenario, and then you can still go, but I still want it enough and I'll still have my back. And I still feel like God's asked me to do it. Like, okay, like I've kind of made amends with the worst case scenario. I'm in, right? Like that's what actually creates resolve to get hard things done. Right. Like, but I think what's happening subconsciously is that we're literally playing out a worst case scenario. Like, okay, I have to work out. Why do I not want to work out? Well, I might die. You're like, you don't actually die, but in your mind, you're like making it a bigger thing than it actually is. And so if you can just work backwards to what the core insecurity is, then you actually know what you're dealing with. then I feel like it dismantles the fear and the shame and the guilt or whatever it is. And it actually allows you to kind of go, all right, like level-headedly, like, okay, let's do this.
It's almost like this false hope, or like, false hope of like, because I think that there's certain things, and it could be materialistic, it could be writing a book, it could be physically working out, a hard conversation, whatever it is. And yes, we play that reel in our head, and it's either a fear-based reel of like, oh, it's going to turn out this way, and this is going to be, I'm going to die working out or whatever, or it could be something materialistic, and you go look at it, and you it's like a hope of like, well, one day, someday, and I'm just going to hold on to that hope of like, I'll be able to afford that car that I've always wanted. And then, and I experienced this. There's a car I've seen multiple times, Mercedes AMG, and I was like, that is a sweet car. I want that car. And for the longest time, I'd see it everywhere, because what is that? The bias,
the confirmation bias.
Confirmation bias. And I'm like, it's meant to be. I want that car. And then I was like, I got to go, like, I'm going to go sit in it, or I'm going to go drive it. And I literally went and sat in the car. And within 10 seconds, I looked at the sales guy and I was like, thank you so much for letting me sit in this car. I was like, this is one of the most uncomfortable like seats in a car.
Yeah.
And you can't see out the back and all the things. And I'm like, I don't like that car. I don't want that car. I still see it, but it's like, it wasn't that hope. I don't have that thing in my head of like, oh, like one day, someday, and then I can do that, because it takes up space in your head. So whatever that is, whether it's a materialistic thing, or writing a book, or working out, like it's either fear-based or this hope, but it's like, go test drive it, go sit in it, go experience it, go buy someone that has what you want, and really think about, are you willing to put in the time, effort, and energy to accomplish whatever that is?
Yeah.
And if it is yes, then that's where you really got to gear up and go through the, stop procrastinating and go through it.
Yeah.
But you may also recognize of like, I really don't want to do this.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to be a rock and roll star, but I hate singing. I hate being in front of people, and I don't like playing instruments, but I want to be a rock and roll star. You're like, no, you don't.
Yeah. And I think to your point, I think that part of the way through, if you're like, no, I know I'm supposed to be doing it. So if we're speaking again to the person that's like, no, I know the thing that I'm supposed to be doing, but I'm just not doing it, then you're actually not anchored in to, right, the burn for it enough. Like your point, I don't care that much about it. You've got to build your care. Like if it's like, well, I should work out. Well, shoulding never gets anyone to be successful. Like shoulding gets you maybe out of bed a day or two, but it doesn't keep you going all day long. And it's like, I believe that our future is going to be built on the people with the greatest conviction, which is the greatest burn, right? Like I want that enough. I actually don't care what the economy is going to do. I don't care what's going to happen. I'm like, I want it enough that I will keep going. And I think that's, if I look around at our world right now, I don't know that there's enough of a narrative of teaching us how to be so connected to wanting it enough. And then if you go, I don't want it that much, then don't talk about it. Like love your body, love your career, like love where you live, like stop grumbling and complaining about it. Then like force your hand, then check it off the list.
Yeah. And I think that's the big difference between kind of what I was saying earlier of like the enemy is coming in and planting seeds of like the distraction of then you're procrastinating on something that you really don't even want.
Yeah. And
I think with social media and news and everything, there's so much going on out there that you're like, you see something and then you put that, you're just putting things over and over in all areas of your life of like, I should be doing this. I want to do this. But at the end of the day, I think they're ultimately distractions. And so then you get analysis paralysis and you're kind of paralyzed because there's so many options and so many ways, whether it's working out or eating or, like you just don't do anything. So then you're like, why procrastinate in all areas of my life? Well, you do because you're not clear on who you are and what you want.
Yeah.
As opposed to what the world is telling you, what you should want at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so just, to kind of lean in. So if you're listening to this, you're like, oh my gosh, this is a can of worms. And I'm either a procrastinator in all the areas of my life or just this one area. In the show notes, we're going to include what I call the ripple effect. And this ripple effect actually starts to unpack all the areas of your life that you would like to see growth. And what I'm sensing for people is, what if, for just a minute, to your point, instead of looking at social media of all the things that we should be doing or could be doing, what if we just picked one thing in every area of your life that you would consider is the next goal that you have for yourself? Because I think it's important in every area, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, financially, relationally, and within your career, that we have a next goal that we're running towards, right? But if we can really lean in to go, what is the next goal that I would have for myself in this area? Then that helps us to focus on the next thing as opposed to all the things, right? And so what that will force all of us to do is to go, okay, I'm going to pick one thing in each area, and then I'm going to build out my daily routine towards that one thing, right? So if it says lose 30 pounds, then I got to work out 4 days a week. Or if it says more connection and passion in my marriage, then we need a date night once a week. Like, it also doesn't have to be mind-boggling and hard. It just needs to be broken down and anchored into a very specific goal, right? Like one that you care about enough, and then close the loops on everything else. Do you know what I mean?
And I think ultimately, if you're procrastinating on anything, because it's the thing that pops in your head every morning. I should do this, or I should want to do this. And there again, either press into it or identify like, no, this is actually really not what I want, and get it out of your mind.
Yeah.
But if it's coming consistently in your head, you know that this is something that you keep like delaying.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to be encouraged, I mean, in Galatians chapter 6, verse 9, it says, do not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time you will reap a harvest. What does that mean? It means that once you go through it, right? God is basically saying, don't grow weary. Do not grow weary in doing good. Because when you stick with it over time, that's where the good stuff is. So it's like not just doing the hard thing one time. It's not one hard conversation. It's not one push-up. It's not one chapter. It's learning to do these things as a lifestyle. I mean, that's ultimately, like, if you really want to boost productivity, I think there's all these like quick fixes. And if you want to boost this, take this pill and do this fast. And so we're like holding our breath to get hard things done, but then we're not like creating sustainable lifestyles around this. And so I feel like part of this is identifying, like, just get sustainable, like pick things that you want the most, create daily sustainable plan to do those things, one thing every day. And you wake up over the course of 30, 60, 90 days, and you've done 30, 60, 90 things. If I'm doing my math right.
It's pretty good.
It's 30, 60, 90 every time.
If you do them.
So we hope that you're encouraged. We hope that you lean in. And if you've identified one thing today that you're procrastinating on, we encourage you to not think that you're a procrastinator. Just recognize that maybe you are procrastinating, and the only way out is through.